Another Naga has brought laurels to the state by representing the country with other members at the United Nations. Addressing the 5th session of the Expert Mechanism on the Rights of Indigenous People, or EMRIP, at the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, Dr. Elizabeth Imti from Mukokchung, Nagaland, of the Network of Indigenous Women in Asia, representing the statement on behalf of Asia Indigenous Peoples Caucus, presented a statement on violence against Indigenous women. Imti stated globally, Indigenous women overrepresents victims of sexual harassment and gender-based violence with limited access to the justice system. Let's have a look at the statement that Dr. Elizabeth Imti presented at the UN building in Geneva.
Respected Madam Chair, I am Dr. Elizabeth Imti of the Network of Indigenous Women in Asia. I am an Ao Naga and I come from Nagaland, and I'm presenting the statement on the behalf of Asia Indigenous People Caucus. Globally, Indigenous women overrepresent victims of sexual harassment and gender-based violence with limited access to a justice system. Violence against Indigenous women is not limited to gender-based discrimination within Indigenous and non-Indigenous peer, but is also contributed by ongoing colonization and militarism, racism and social exclusion, and poverty-inducing economic and development policies. The practice of law enforcement by states and authorities has discouraged Indigenous women from seeking justice. Indigenous women have a fear of reprisal in reporting their cases of violence. They are often uncomfortable being part of a humiliating justice system collection in an insensitive and culturally inappropriate setting. Since many states do not recognize Indigenous peoples, there is a lack of disaggregated data to reflect on the severity of this issue. Besides, most cases are always silenced and unreported due to language barrier, complexity in justice mechanism, and geographical remoteness. Indigenous women have been organizing themselves to address violence, devising innovative ways such as robust documentation, rehabilitation support, lobbying with governments, exposing the activities and impacts of militarization, development projects, etc. on women, organizing healing workshops, among many other initiatives. Therefore, we urge the states and the UN bodies to recognize and address the special context of vulnerability to violence and discrimination of Indigenous women and girls to ensure equity and justice, to implement the recommendations and obligations that CEDAW has forwarded to each state regarding ending discrimination and violence against Indigenous women and girls in all our diversities, to stop violating the rights of Indigenous women and girls in the name of development and political processes, to ensure disaggregated data collection on Indigenous women, to recognize the collective rights of Indigenous women and girls, and comply with the mandatory process of free, prior, informed consent as enshrined in UN DRIP. Kangapular, thank you.